This episode, Home Projects Kickoff. Well, spring is nearly here, folks. You can see I'm freezing, but that's beside the point. Time to plan for your major projects coming up for spring and summer. It's time. Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show. Home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros. Thanks for listening to another edition of the Handyman Pros Radio Show, where our goal is to help save you time, money, and aggravation on your home maintenance and repair. This edition's entitled Home Projects Kickoff. And to help me explain, I'm here with my kickoff specialist, Mr. Johnny. Johnny, what has been going on this week in your world?
Well, the projects continue, man. Honestly, I think we talked about it on a different show, but I've been doing some planning and getting some stuff done here, and I'm kind of serious about this year to get some things done. So, yep. It just comes a time when it's like, man, I really like being outside, and I just want to get everything done before it gets, 100 degrees outside.
Yeah.
And then you're working outside.
Yep.
If I'm working for somebody and I'm outside, that's one thing. But when I'm working for myself and I'm outside, it's like, why am I doing this? I should have planned better. So, getting some of the gardens and stuff in shape.
Yeah. It's all about it. A lot of it's about planning. It's just about and then just sucking it up and doing it.
Well, the other thing is I've had a project that I've wanted to accomplish for a while, and it requires me to get rid of some bushes out front, and they're basically dead. So let me get rid of them, and I just want to put some gravel in there and put a bench and be done with it.
Chain and car bumper.
Yeah.
Or rope.
Dynamite.
Just yank them right out, Johnny. It's the best way. Do it when it's a little wet. They just pull right out. It's a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get really started on this, don't forget, like and subscribe to our channels because we need it. Not really, but we would like to spread the word and do all that good groovy stuff. So, all right, Johnny, what kind of projects and tips are we going to talk about? What are we talking about? Are we going to talk about planning a little bit?
Well, I think that would be the prudent thing to do. I think that because that rolls into budgets.
Yeah, of course.
Do you really have the money? I know I want to do all these projects. I've got some of the material, and we've talked about this on another show using some leftover stuff that I've had.
Yep.
But there's some other things that's going to catch up with me, and I have to be realistic with myself, right? You have to be real and honest and say, man, some of this stuff is going to be expensive. Do I really want to afford it? Do I put that one off and do something else? So
yeah, it's funny you say that because one of the things that we have here, we're going to throw out some project ideas as well, but one of them is building raised garden beds.
Yeah,
and my wife wants she wants some raised garden beds, and I'm like, yeah, that's not building it is not the problem for me, right? Because we do this for a living and stuff like that. But I did start thinking about it. She wants to do a couple of different things. I don't want to say like several different things. And I started putting pen to paper and doing the numbers, and I'm like, dang, this is going to be kind of expensive, and it's not that it's everything, but it does play into the bigger picture of, it's just, gosh, it's expensive. Everything's gotten so damned expensive that you kind of have to do some planning now just so that you don't get done and go, what did I just do? Holy smokes. I just spent several $1,000s for this, and do I really get any value out of it? Which is a different thing, but still stuff's got expensive. So planning really, it matters anymore. It really does. It's become really simple. It doesn't matter whether you're doing raised garden beds or a paver project or a simple garden shed, or simply do a simple garden shed like I do that ended up being 2 stories tall.
Right. Well, you changed the whole look of the skyline of the neighborhood there with that thing. But that's you. So,
well, I was there. I might as well have done it. That was a now or never thing, But whatever these projects are, we do need, we talk a lot about planning, but I can't say it enough. Just think stuff through. It's all you got to do.
Well, here's
put some numbers on it.
Right. Well, speaking of garden beds and things like that, I'm in the process of putting some trees, some like arborvitaes around. But I have to look at the cost of those things. I mean, I'm talking probably about $60 a piece for ones that are pretty 6 foot tall or 7-gallon ones or whatever the hell they are, and it's a and then I want to do the front of the house, which you've seen. I just want to redo all that. But I'm in the middle of putting pen to paper and saying, okay, well, if I want to do these bushes and shrubs and this kind of stuff, I mean, I'm talking, here's 50, here's 40, here's 60, here's that, and I'm not even talking about digging
1,000 cuts.
Yeah, exactly.
1,000 cuts.
And I'm not even talking about installing them, which some of it will be me, and then some of it, I don't know. I'm not 20 years old anymore. I don't know if I'll be, some of these big anyways. So that's kind of what I'd like to do. That's in terms of the gardening stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about doing a raised bed, and then we're talking about doing a raised bed off the ground with like paver, with the pavers, where we'll build a retaining wall and build one raised bed that way, and then she wants some actual built wood raised garden, like garden containers, for lack of a better word. I think we're going to use kind of big square bins, but we'll fill them full of dirt, and she'll grow stuff in there. But we've just got to, we're just trying to, there's two sides to the planning for us. One is where are we going to put them, because we have sun issues on our property. So we have to kind of be aware of where the sun is and how much sun we're trying to achieve on these particular beds and things, because as you know, in the South, folks, if you don't know this, you really have to worry about how much sun you get and stuff. There's stuff rated for full sun and full shade, and the difference in temperature is a lot. And so there's just a whole lot. There's more that goes into it than you think, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So we're really working on that. And then I'm working on the labor to do it, which isn't really as big a deal for me because it's all my own labor, but I also don't want to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so we've got to work on that stuff. And then layout, and there's all these little things that go to it.
Always.
Yeah, it's just always, there's just a lot of stuff. And I have an idea of what I want to have this outcome in my mind. And I want to make sure that I get there, and I want to get there efficiently. I hate to say it that way, but I want to get there efficiently. And I don't want to get sidewinded, Johnny, I was just looking at some of these line items that we've got on doing these raised garden beds. And this is the one that gets to me recently. The cost of your fasteners, screws or nails. Boy, have they gotten expensive. Well,
hey, I'm right there with you, man. Every time I go replace, my, fixing my deck or doing something, you need those, exterior screws. Well, they're not just that. I mean, they're deck screws, right? Screws, those kind. And it's, man, wow. Those things
gotten really.
Yeah.
You used to never think about that stuff.
No,
I never really thought about it unless I was dealing with a really big project where you were going to have lots and lots of, multiple buckets, right? Now I'm like, oh my God.
Well, it's interesting. So you look on the package, right, of just a small box, because, I've got enough of them, but I don't want buckets and buckets of them because I don't use that many I don't want them sitting around and, so on and so forth. But, you buy some of the smaller, lots of these things, and it's like, well, there's 73 screws in this thing, and it's $10.
Yeah
For 2.5 inch number 10s.
And that's a lot per piece.
And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna go over and buy the small bucket. That's $39.
Exactly.
It's like, wow. That's so now the wood price is $10 a piece for the good pressure treated, select lumber. And, and then it's the screws.
Don't get me started on that.
But
select for what? The trash heap? Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, sorry. Right. So there's that. I mean, that's the thing that you got to kind of add in all these projects. So
yeah, you can't ignore the fasteners anymore. It used to be
no.
like, oh, I don't even, you didn't even think about it. I never thought about it. Now I'm like, I got to think about it. I got to add it in, and it is what it
it's
is.
a major line item.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things, so we're talking about doing this one particular raised garden bed where we're going to put a little small, we're on a hill. So we're going to do a little small retaining wall. And it's not that, and this isn't that big a deal, but I'm like, so where are we going to get the dirt? And she was like, oh, because the last one that we did this way, I was actually digging out for my shed. So I had dirt galore, but we've used all that dirt at this point. So now I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to have to go buy dirt. What a pain that is. So then I'm figuring out where
let me ask you
dirt.
this. How big is this raised bed that you're thinking about?
Well, and so then there's that. So me, Johnny, it's all about size.
Yeah.
Bigger
yeah,
is
of
better.
course.
No, it's not. It's not that. It's just a question of where this is. I think if we're going to do one, it's going to be pretty good size. So I'll probably actually get a trailer load of dirt, because I can.
Yeah.
But it's going to be fairly large. It's going to be fairly large. Like, I don't know. It's probably going to be 15 feet by 10. So pretty good size. It's probably going to have a foot and a half deep at the deep end and ground level at the other end. So it's quite a bit of dirt, but you got to think about these things. I mean, it sounds simple, and it is simple, but it's logistics. I got to get it here and, yada, yada, yada. And it's not a big deal, but just got to think it through
and then,
again.
Yeah. And then, the other thing is when I'm thinking about putting in some of these shrubs and everything else, then it's like, then you got to have a conversation with yourself. This is your responsibility now that you need to water this stuff, and it's as a no-brainer as that sounds, it's a commitment that you've got to do it, or this stuff is dead, and your investment
it's funny. Yeah, your investment goes down the drain.
Yeah.
Right? You're done. It's funny. I always think about this. I always like, the egg shortage that's going on. How there's been this, and I'm like, I should just get some chickens, right? And I can get and I know this sounds crazy, like an aside, but I could put chickens on my property, no problem. Chickens are relatively easy to care for compared.
Yeah, my
to
neighbors got them.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's it to your point, right? That you have to, if I'm going to get chickens, I can't travel because I got to feed the damn chickens.
Bingo.
Right? Bingo. And I'm like, chickens are out because I'm traveling, right? Same thing with a garden. Same thing with a garden.
That's
like,
what I'm saying.
I'm going to plant this stuff and I'm going to have fresh fruits and vegetables and stuff. And then I'm like, yeah, but you're traveling, so you're not going to be around to take care of it. So it's a no.
That's the thing. Right? You've got a commitment now. You just bought yourself another puppy. It really is kind of like that until these things get their, until in my case, until these things get a foothold into the soil. Yes. You're going to have to, water these things because it's what I'm talking about is really expensive. And I'm like, oh, man.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, this is all part of that planning things, and then you get into the actual nuts and bolts on each individual project that you're doing. And we have some notes and we'll publish them if y'all are interested, but like raised garden beds, just for example, are you going to build them up on stands? You're going to build them in the ground. Well, you need to look at cost of pine, how much, or pressure treated pine, what's it going to cost, how big of the bed do you want to make, what are you going to put on the inside of it, you can put landscape fabric, or you're going to put a bin in there, what's that going to cost, then is there anything you can reuse, could you find some old stuff that you could use, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's just all this stuff, right?
Sometimes sometimes if you're looking around at some of these at the big box stores, you might be able to get a deal on some planters themselves, depending upon how big they are.
Pre-made
planters, that might fit your project.
And it might be less expensive.
And it might be less expensive in the long run of building it and all that kind of stuff.
Very, very much so. Very much so. Here's some other things, refreshing your front entrance, right? So
that's what I was
boost your curb appeal on your house.
That's what I'm doing.
That, Yeah.
That's exactly
what's it going to cost to repaint your door? How much time is it going to take you? Oh, do you have to sand it? Do you, you think, oh, it's not that big a deal. Is it? I don't know. Hanging pots and putting new pots out, like Johnny, we were just talking about, hanging a new planter pot and stuff like that, and power washing it off and cleaning it up and all that stuff. And it sounds simple, but is it? Do you need to rent a power wash? All that kind of stuff. Just got to think about it, right? You got to think about it. Staining the deck. Johnny, tell us about doing a deck.
Well, yeah. So then there's that, right? So I'm going to, once again, I'm going to have to go out and I'm going to pressure wash to whatever's left, and I'm going to restain it. So I'm talking this, so I love to do these kind of projects, and, I don't want to keep harping on the price, but, at this point it's kind of, what, $60 a gallon for stain.
Yeah.
Or plus or minus, and I'm using 2 gallons of it, and it's, so you're in for it there. So
yeah.
And it never ends. And now, so when I have to prioritize my projects, I all the work I've done on that deck and stuff like that, I want to, that's kind of number one on my list. I don't want anything to happen to it now after all this. So
Johnny, do you know how I prioritize my deck?
No.
Yes, you do. I took the damn thing down and put stone in. But you're not going to put stone. You're not going to put stone 4 feet off the ground. So no,
so
no, you build a retaining wall and backfill it and do it that way. That's how you do it. Yes.
No, it ain't going to work here. But I'm just saying that after you put so much work into something and money into it, so that's going to take. But I can handle the stain, and it's relatively easy to do and so forth. Yep. It just takes some time. That is going to be on my that's definitely on my list. And then washing down the house, which doesn't cost me more than the materials of bleach and Dawn.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's because you've got a pressure washer and all that stuff that goes along with it. Yeah.
So
install one of our notes is installing a rain barrel system. We're going to tell you, make sure you check your local municipalities in your state. Can you actually harvest rainwater? It is, believe it or not, illegal in some states, which I find to be absolutely insane. Whatever, not going to go there. We're not going to get into that conversation, but there's things you can do. If you can collect rainwater and save it up and use it for sprinkling later in the season. Pretty good project, but think it through again. You need some barrels and stuff. Johnny just bought a barrel for and I had been buying some barrels too. They're
well, mine was a steel barrel, right? For burning barrel. But
I've been buying IBC totes. It's a long story, and I'm not going to get into it. But I've been IBC totes. They're 275 gallons, and they're about $70 or $80 a piece. But they're awful nice.
Yeah,
they hold a lot of water. So anyway,
it's not a bad idea if you live in places where water is expensive or it's scarce. Hey man, when it rains, collect it. Why not?
Fills those tanks up.
Yeah. Yeah, like the old cisterns.
Cisterns, yep, like a cistern, kind of a modern day cistern. If you're building a fire pit too, fire pits are really good outdoor projects. So I like them. I've got a nice one that I did for myself. It's actually it's a long story. Anyway, we sit outside and do it quite a bit, but same thing, go through it. First off, find a place that you're really comfortable with. And I will tell you, on a fire pit, make sure you like where it is. It's not too close to the house, so you don't smoke your house out.
Or it's too close to your deck that you just rebuilt, and you got ashes flying on the deck.
Yeah, Johnny, one of my neighbors, he put his fire pit. I'm not kidding. If he really fires that fire pit up, he's going to set his house on fire. It's so close to his house. This is, my favorite neighbor.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm just like, are you out of your mind? You got to be absolutely insane. Where he put? Well, yeah, it's a different.
Yeah, probably. Different... my fire pit. I have a little one that I bought, but my fire pit is the burning barrel. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
Hey, let me tell you something. These. If you're an old bum man in the city, man, the value of the value of a steel barrel that's got a fire in it, because man, when that steel gets hot, it throws out some BTUs, man.
Yeah, baby.
You
sure
can get,
does.
yeah, I mean, you can get about, 50 people around that thing and stay warm.
Yep. Yeah.
You know?
I will say this about fire pits. If you really want to think about a fire pit, think about it. I had great luck with chimeneas, right? So we bought a
Yeah.
chimenea and it was a
Yeah.
ceramic chimenea and it was not very expensive. And man, that you want to talk about throwing out some BTUs and staying hot like that. Ceramic heats up.
Yeah.
They don't have tremendous lasting power. They do tend to break apart if it rains and or they freeze and break and stuff like that. But
it's a clay
pretty
pot.
inexpensive. It's a clay pot. Yeah, is what it is. Pretty inexpensive, but really quite nice. You get great heat out of them with not a lot of wood too. That's the other side. You don't need all that much wood in them. But anyway, just some thoughts. That's some real life experience, for what you got.
But that is kind of the trend. I mean, that is kind of the trend, to build a nice little fire pit. And I
love sitting outside.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. I do too.
Love it. It's really a lot of fun. Have a couple of adult beverages, sit around and just chatting it up, just enjoying a nice night. It's a great thing. It really is
nice.
It's really, really nice. It's very relaxing and blah, 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 and all that stuff. So I kind it's a good one. Here's another one is revive the fence. To me, that's like hard work. I'm not big on doing fence lines, but
big time hard work. But I will tell you though, the necessary, it is necessary because that is one thing that really gets out of hand. That when a fence, if a tree falls across it, the wood starts to rot away. Then you've got
stuff grows up into it. Trees grow up into it.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorites on my rental properties. Chain link fence that people have let trees grow through it, and then it's like
chain link fence. Oh my God, yeah.
I mean, crazy.
That's chemical warfare then.
Believe it or not, yes, well, it's a combination of chemical warfare and removal. If you can at least skirt it, like get the bark off so it doesn't grow anymore. But then you have to wait for it to rot off. You literally have to wait for it to rot off. And it's just like, wow, how about you just spray this down once a year, with some Roundup or something. Anyway, be that as it may, that's a whole nother thing. Laying a gravel pathway or any kind of gravel pathway, it's all good. Great project. Again, just check your numbers, check your supplies, look at bulk stuff. We talked about that in a show about saving money on materials, but look at bulk stuff. If you're going to do gravel and stuff, don't do it in bags, folks. It's really expensive. Gosh, you're better off to rent a trailer and get it, because you can buy 2,000 pounds of gravel for what you can buy 10 bags of gravel for. That's not an exaggeration. And you're not even close in weight and or volume. So, really buy in bulk if you're going to do any kind of gravel work, pea stone, river rock, whatever, any of that stuff. It's so much less expensive in bulk. It'll pay for a delivery cost and you'll have a ton of stuff that you can use for a lot. And also remember this, when figuring your numbers, you're going to be low. You're going to need more than you think. So,
good tip.
Yeah, that's just reality. I've done it too many times and I'm always like, why didn't I get more?
So what would you say the percentage is that you had to buy more? Is that did I say that right? What was the overage percentage wise that you found yourself getting?
How many times was I short? Is what you're asking as a percentage?
Yes. So
how many times I was short was probably 85 to 90% of the time.
But okay, I'm sorry. Then how much more did you need?
About 10%.
That's what I was asking. 10%.
Yeah,
more.
it's just not. You're never not much off, but you're off. And it's just kind of like, just buy more, because you know what? You'll find other uses for it, like, and especially like with rock. Like, I'll delineate it. If you're going to buy rock, if you have too much and you can't figure out what to do with it, you'll figure out something to do with it eventually, right? And you can just spread it out. And believe it or not, rocks, it's actually easy to get rid of. And then
because it'll actually kind of disappear upon itself too if you were doing a pathway.
Correct. Yeah. You can actually just lay it thicker over the top.
Yeah.
Is what you can do. And it'll eventually push down in anyway. So that's just kind of one of the things. It's tough to do too much unless you do like if you bought 2 truckloads and you only needed 1, that's too much. But if you buy if you buy a truckload and you need 3/4 of a truckload, that extra quarter you can just put it over and it'll settle itself in. Believe it or not, it usually works out.
Since you brought that up, what was go back to how many bags versus the cost that equals out for the load there?
Now, this doesn't include the delivery costs, but basically, if you're buying a bag at a big box store, it's about $3.50 a bag, and you buy 10 bags. So you spent $35, and if you can envision those 10 bags, I buy a ton, literally 2,000 pounds for the same money.
And what's the difference in the amount that could be spread
Factor
with
of
that?
5. Factor
Wow.
of 5 in volume.
So it's 5 times he's saving. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I have a trailer that I dump it into the trailer, so I pay for my own transportation costs, but I pay for my transportation costs if I'm bringing it from the big box store anyway. So buying landscape materials in general in bulk is so much less expensive.
Yeah.
So much less expensive.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good information for you folks out there, and me. I don't delve in as much hardscaping as Larry does.
I've done a lot of it. Done a lot of it lately. Over the past couple of years. And one of the other beauties of hardscaping is once hardscaping's done, you don't do it again. Like rock and stuff. So, and you don't have to cut it. You might have to round it up a little bit, but besides that, you don't have to cut it. It's not like land, like grass or anything like that, and you don't have to care for it. I don't care. It's rock, it's done.
Yeah.
So, but I will say, but the same thing with mulch too. If you buy mulch in bulk, and if you have a little extra, just put it on heavy, as it were. It turns into high grade dirt. So it's just kind of one of those things. Landscape materials in general, if you can buy them bulk, buy them in bulk. I've just found that to be a very good cost hack. So, what else we got, John? Anything else we need to talk about here?
No, that's really about it. I mean, I'll tell you that my big projects are what I was talking about. This a bunch of landscaping stuff, my outdoor projects.
I thought you were putting in an anti-aircraft gun for the spaceships, Johnny.
No, but as you were alluding to earlier, it's all about size. So, yeah. So we are good for the outdoor projects. You know what? I talked myself into spending just enough, too much. So there you go.
There you go. And there you go. All right, folks, please like and subscribe our podcast, both on YouTube and your players. We really appreciate it. Gets the word out. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, it's questions@handymanprosradioshow.com. Send us an email. We do respond. We do it. With that, Johnny, take us home, babe.
All right, folks, have a great week. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.